Yes. Oh, good.
Donna,
Yes, ma'am.
you're the chair.
Yes.
So the first thing we do is do a quick check-in.
Okay. Very
So
good.
I'll go last.
All
So
right.
you
Very
can let
good.
The
Then-
other people,
Okay.
first of all, introduce yourself and then let the other people check in.
Okay. So I'm Donna Peel, like banana peel, and I'm here on Cape Cod, and my brother just brought me an air conditioner, so I'm a happy camper. And I will turn it over to you, Julianne. You were the first one joined. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Reverend Dr. Julianne Robertson, and I am here in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Thank you. Shall we go to Pat O'Brien?
Hi, I'm Pat O'Brien. I'm on Cape Cod, and my friend's daughter had the big party yesterday that we've been working for and so long, and I swam this morning in the pool.
Excellent. Robin?
Yeah, hi, Robin Lloyd, Burlington, Vermont, and we just finished the Vermont Wilf Gathering in Rochester, Vermont. We had 10 Wilfers and had a great time.
Oh, so great. Joan?
Hi, yes, hi, I'm in the San Jose, California area, in the San Francisco Bay area. And I am so glad to have been able to participate in observing the International Wilf Congress, but I am very glad that it's over because there were meetings in the middle of the night, in the extremely early morning, like 3 a.m., et cetera, et cetera. So getting the sleep and the rest and so on is still a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. George, who set up our meeting for us, thankfully. So thank you so much.
No problem.
What a
So
blessing.
it's good to see everyone. I'm well. I'm in Lancaster, Massachusetts, where I've been since the 24th of June. And I leave next week to go back to North Carolina. Been interesting to be here. Mostly the biggest difference is I wake pretty much with the sun. So up here, that's like 5 a.m., 5:30. It's annoying. But other than that, I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Samantha?
Hi, I'm Samantha. I'm here in
Howdy.
North Carolina and very hot. I had a birthday a couple of days ago, and I am raising money for SARN as a birthday fundraiser. If anybody's interested, please message me. If you're interested in donating, I'm only $85 away, I think, from my goal of $530. And what can I say? I really appreciate, Donna, that you had resent the email today before the meeting started, and I didn't have to go looking through a million Zoom invites for it. I really appreciate that being on top of my email today. Nothing else, kind of quiet, very hot. Thank you.
I think George did that. I want to give her credit. Philip? Are you ready to check in, Philip?
Yes, this is Philip Cole calling. I'm with the San Francisco Wolf Branch, and I am again in the middle of Golden Gate Park. Yes. And it's 56 degrees, and I'm enjoying it.
Wow. And Diane Blaze was here. She had to go to another meeting, so she'll be back. And that's it. We're ready for you, Miss Teresa.
Well, thank you, Donna. I'm a bit haggard after the Wilf International Congress, as Joan pointed out, in the middle of the night, getting up to do a meeting at midnight, 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So I still haven't quite caught up on my sleep, but I am, Teresa, Elamine, and I'm in the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia. And I know most people didn't say their branches, but Julianne is in the new DC, Maryland, Virginia branch, and we're so happy to see her here. And then, of course, Samantha and George are in the Southern Piedmont branch. DC is kind of up south, but we consider DC still the South. What I wanted to say, dear Madam Chair, is that the Wilf International Congress, it was my first Congress. And the most important thing from my perspective was passing of the resolution on the UN decade for people of African descent, because it falls into the human rights area. So the woman who is the director of human rights for Wilf International, she really strengthened the resolution. There was a first draft written by Leila Aladat, who is the Deputy Secretary General. It was really amazing what the staff of the International Secretariat, those sisters are capable of doing amazing. Because with Melissa Torres, who is a vice president of the International Board and from the US section, her mother is very ill, and she was supposed to finish the resolution. And when she couldn't do it at the last minute, the International Secretariat people went into motion. They got the International Board to extend the deadline beyond July 8th. They wrote the resolution, they strengthened the resolution. And then when we had the side meeting on July 22nd, where Joan was there, Mary White was there, several women from Africa were there, we finalized the resolution as late as Friday, the 22nd. And then the resolution was voted on Saturday, the 23rd. And I bet it was pretty close to unanimous. Because the problem is that the UN decade started on January 1 of 2015. So the Congress that happened in April of 2015 did not mention the UN decade. The Congress that happened in 2018 in Ghana, mind you, did not mention the UN decade. I almost lost my mind when I signed up for this Congress and realized no action had been taken on the UN decade. So the UN decade resolution, the credit is given to the US section. So it's on us in the US section, I think, to really lift it up. And we can do it through this Advancing Human Rights Committee and the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee. Now, the Immigration Subcommittee, which is called Migration and Border, we need to hear a report from that today, Donna, and we need to hear a report from the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty. And the other subcommittee, Donna, is the UN Decade for Women Subcommittee, which is in the control of Barbara Nielsen. Unfortunately, we have not had a report on that committee in quite some time. However, we do know that Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty, as well as the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittees, which are the two subcommittees that George and I co-convene. And the Migration and Border Subcommittee is convened by Tina Shelton out of Philadelphia. So since this is your first meeting that you're chairing as our new Advancing Human Rights Chair, everybody applaud.
Thank you. Teresa.
Donna is our new Advancing Human Rights Committee Chair. Joan Goddard, who got us through this kind of interim period. And then we had an election, Dr. J. And Donna, in the land of the Wampanoag, she was elected as chair. So I think that bit of orientation is important for Dr. J, because I know she's going to be playing a very active role in this. So,
Wonderful.
Donna, do you want to hear reports from the subcommittees now before we talk a little bit more? And I'll go last with the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee, because it directly relates to the resolution that was passed.
Right, right. Well, who has a report to give to us?
Well, George, why don't you do the ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, and I will join in about the work we're doing in Columbus.
You're muted, George. There we go.
We had our meeting this month for ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. If anyone wants the recording, I can send that along to them. One of the major things that we're focusing on there, or things that are coming up, is in Columbus, Georgia, and Teresa may have details on this, they're doing a expungement event. The national, in 2019, in Atlanta, Georgia, there was a national conference on ending mass incarceration. And at that conference, people did explore expungement and other options for people dealing with mass incarceration issues. So that was the inspiration for the event that will be in Columbus. We had a guest on our July meeting, which if you haven't seen the recording, it's really great. North Carolina hosted the meeting, and we had a gentleman from Charlotte who's in, Samantha, you're gonna have to remind me of it. It's a ministers group that's working to end mass incarceration. A young man who spoke to us, and statewide in Gastonia, no, not in North Carolina, there is an organization working for alternatives to mass incarceration. And we had those folks to speak to us about options that places can take. In some ways it's limited in North Carolina, but being able to pursue interventions for people suffering under mass incarceration, especially interventions for that, you know, what follows you after you've been released and you've still got that felony record. That's what the expungement event can help with. Anything else to fill in on that, Teresa?
George, I just want to say that the process we're using in the ending mass incarceration and the death penalty is featuring states. So Georgia did a couple of months ago what's happening in Georgia. North Carolina did what's happening in North Carolina. And at the July meeting, Joan Goddard did what's happening in California. So at the August meeting, Robin Lloyd is charged to talk about the People's Republic of Vermont, where they have no death penalty, and hopefully she will invite her friend to talk about the actual work she's doing inside the prison. It's entirely up to Robin, because Robin is in charge of the August meeting on ending mass incarceration. And I would just add that in Georgia, the second national conference for ending mass incarceration, organized by the Ebenezer Baptist Church, the historic Martin Luther King Jr. Church. That conference is happening January 11th through the 13th of 2023. So tomorrow in Columbus, Georgia, we're having a meeting about the work we're doing, mobilizing to that conference, in addition to the Fannie Lou Hamer second annual conference on human rights. So the branch in Columbus is holding a human rights conference. Part of it, all of it will be streamed live on Facebook, but some of it will be on Zoom and some of it will be in person. So that's the work of ending mass incarceration that George and I are doing. And I think Samantha is probably best to report on the migration and border work. So Samantha, would you do that for us?
Risa, I wasn't able to make it to that last meeting. Joan had stepped up to give that report.
Great, Joan.
Thank you.
What's the
Okay.
date- What's the
Yes.
date of the August ending mass incarceration? What date in August?
George, could you put it in the chat for her?
Okay, I'll look it up and put it in the chat for you.
Okay, thank you.
Joan?
Okay. What I'm not making a full report for the committee, for the subcommittee, excuse me. But Diane and I were asked to work on one of the projects that that came up in the July meeting of the it's actually Border and Migration Justice Subcommittee. So the name's been changed recently, so we're all, struggling with getting all the words in there. But the project that Diane and I are working on is because Teresa was able to recruit or encourage Adrian to do a Spanish translation version, and he shortened it because, as you all probably know, Spanish tends to take more words and more space than English does. So we have the translation, and we figured that it would be a good idea to contact the Membership Development Committee to get some money to be able to produce this brochure. And of course, they're interested in doing that, in having it be available for all of WILF, not just this subcommittee. And so that is in process. Diane's been mostly working on that, and she has realized with them that the having a full-fledged brochure is going to take a little while. So what Diane and I are suggesting is that the translation be worked up as an insert so that it's with the English language brochure, but not as beautiful yet, which it will be, for immediate use, quick use. And Diane feels that she still will need to work with the graphic artist and that there will be some expense, but we'll work on that. And obviously, at the moment, the money that we have for this committee, for this whole AHR committee, is $400 for the year, but we haven't spent any of it yet. So we'll need to come back to the committee about that in August, I think. But we're trying to get this going as soon as possible so that it can be of use right away, where people are already feeling the need for it, and all of us will appreciate it when it's available. If anybody has any questions, or Diane was going to try to watch 2 meetings at once and so on, she may have something to correct or to add to what I just said.
Thank you, Joan.
Well, Donna, if I could add a little something.
Yes, please.
I spoke to Adrian a couple of days ago, and he said that Margot had suggested that it be a bilingual glossy brochure. And he thinks that there's a way to kind of cut down on the repetition in the current brochure, so that it would be both Spanish and English in the brochure. And so the next meeting of advancing of border and migration justice is in August. And let me see when that is. It's gonna be August 16th at 6 p.m. And that's the Border and Migration Justice meeting. And Robin, I did put the information for the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty in the chat, because our meetings are always the second Monday of every month at 2 p.m. So we have a standard meeting for ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. So sorry to be pulling those two different pieces together, Donna, but it's important for us to be at the Border and Migration Justice meeting when it happens in August, so that the brochure issues can be finalized, because WILF is not broke. So if the national board can give us the money to create the brochure, Adrian seems to be able to locate the people who can actually do that work. And we just need to get a price on. And I've really nudged Adrian to make sure he gives us that price on.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, so we don't have Barbara Nielsen, so we don't have a report about the women's UN, any of that program. I think it's still inactive at this time. There hasn't been
She's scheduled a meeting, I believe.
Oh, she did?
She's in the process of doing it. She's called out for people to, I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's in process. I think she said September in that message.
Well, dear Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would urge you to get up with Barbara Nielsen so that
Okay.
she uses the Advancing Human Rights listserv so that we all know when the meeting is happening, and it doesn't feel like it's a kind of crony meeting among a few people.
Yes.
I'm just being completely blunt about that, because in the past, the UN for Women meeting has not been open to everyone. And
Okay,
she
good.
needs to post it to
Right.
the Advancing Human Rights listserv. If she's in the process of doing it, then everybody on the Advancing Human Rights listserv should know about it, not just Joan.
Right. Well, I'll be happy to contact her, and we'll get this up to everybody on the AHR list.
Thank you.
And we don't, and so I don't think we have any other reports except for the reparations committee.
Well, it's good because we have about 30 minutes left on what is traditionally George and I like to do the 1 hour meeting thing.
Yes.
And so I won't go into too much detail because the UN Decade Reparations meeting, and Robin hasn't caught up on her sleep yet. I think she wants to get back to it. But the UN Decade Reparations meeting is actually Thursday.
Yes.
It's at 2 p.m. So I think, George, where are you? George and I co-convened that meeting, and George sent out the link for it. So George, how many people have registered for that meeting so far?
17.
Good. Well, in Cobra, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, it held its 33rd annual conference in New England. I think it was in New Hampshire, Robin, because it was in Hartford, Connecticut, actually. And so I bought the t-shirt, and so this was a bit, they sent me also the program. So what I'm doing is trying to get the National Female Co-Chair to be our speaker at the meeting on Thursday. So when you look at the program and you see all the amazing work that's being done, and the amazing, they got so many donations. And so and Cobra has had a kind of rough time over the years. I remember going to a meeting years ago where they had only $84 in the bank account. It was on life support. So HR 40 and the passage of HR 40 looking real strong has put a lot of life back in Cobra. So I will be calling the national office today in DC, by the way, Dr. J. So do you know any in Cobra people in DC, Dr. J? Can't hear you, you're muted.
I'm sure that I do, yes. But not necessarily in that capacity. So DC is small, we all know each other.
Well, that's all I have on that, Madam Chair.
Okay, I
I
have Robin.
Yeah, all right. Ajua Ayatoro was the head of N'COBRA back when we took the delegation to Durban. And she's a remarkable leader. I don't know exactly where she is now, but she would be a great speaker, I would think, to bring us up to date on the issue of reparations.
Well, the protocol, Robin, is that the elected co-chairs who are currently serving would be the ones to speak. And there is an elected female co-chair, and it's really delicate when it comes to organizations and the protocol. So the protocol would be for me to ask the national co-chair, and I can take care of that.
Well, whatever. I mean, I don't understand all these protocols, but she was a WILF supporter, a WILF member, and went to the Durban conference, and is also was involved in Cobra, I think, for a while. Anyway, just thinking she would be someone we should reconnect with.
Well, Cobra is a Black organization, and I have met her. But the Durban conference was over 20 years ago, Robin. So there's been, well, every year there are new people who step forward. It's not like WILF, where the same people stay in office for decade after decade. There are younger people and other people who come forward in Cobra. It's not like WILF.
Do you know her? You know Ajua?
I met her years ago. I don't, and she is an excellent speaker. But there are lots of excellent speakers in Cobra. So I can take care of it, Robin.
Yeah,
No worries.
there just aren't many that have been WILF members.
Well, WILF has excluded Black women intentionally for nearly 100 years. So that is not unusual.
And that's a real sad statement. That's true. In so many ways, we're going to work against that. And I think we're on the right track. Does anyone else have anything to report?
I don't want to report anything. I just want to say that I'm so there's been so much going on the past years, but it seems to get exponentially worse. And this reparations, I am just so happy that this was passed, and that it was passed on my birthday makes it really special. And I'm so glad. It's such a positive thing. It just makes it makes these years, and hard work and great work, everybody.
It's a real hallelujah moment.
Oh yeah, and when the Congress ended yesterday morning, it was so celebratory because what's important, and I know Robin as a third generation Wilfer can appreciate the fact that 2 presidents in a row have been from Africa at Wilf International level. So the new president is Sylvie from Cameroon, and she took office yesterday. And in her hometown, it was like everybody in her family and everybody, and they were just dancing. Oh, it was just so amazing. And so I know that the new international board, which Sylvie is the president, and Melissa Torres, who is from the US section and of Mexican origin, she's a vice president, as well as Jamila from Afghanistan, who is a vice president, and then Janet from Australia, who is the treasurer. So those are the new officers of the national board. And we also have Janet Slaughter, who is the new regional rep for the Americas, which covers everything in Canada, the US, and South America, and the whole Caribbean. So we have a regional representative for this whole Americas, and that is a US member, Janet Slaughter.
Right. George, you have your hand up?
I do. And just excited that, yes, yesterday when the UN Decade Resolution passed at Samantha's birthday, that's awesome. But I also want to underscore that for each of us, it's also a call to action. We have these events, you have a march, you have a weekend workshop, you have a wonderful experience that gets your energy going. And if you don't use that energy, you've wasted it. So in the resolution, towards the end, there are the action steps. That includes publicizing the event and educating people about it. In the Southern Piedmont branch, we are going to be thinking about how are we going to do that. This morning, Samantha and I talked about a couple of options for dates in September. Samantha is brilliant, and through Shemaye, who's a member, but not very active, she's always overwhelmed. We have secured a semi-permanent outdoor meeting space to call people together and have a cookout and hot dogs and hamburgers and give out materials and sign people up. And that's work we're doing through the Southern Piedmont Circle of the Poor People's Campaign, but educating people about ending mass incarceration, about reparations, and the UN Decade, especially in that part of Charlotte, it's an obligation. And we have to make that happen where we are in a way that's meaningful. Otherwise, all of the energy that was created during the Congress like all the energy that's now dissipating after the Poor People's Campaign June event dissipates. And what a waste for people who put all the time and energy and resources into it. So let's make sure we make the best of it. Call to
You
action.
know,
Thank
Can I-
you. Pat?
you know that Reverend Dr. William J. Barber's mother was a member of WILF in North Carolina. He
I
spoke to
did
us.
not know that, Pat. When did you find that out?
Well, he said it was when he spoke to us. He was a keynote speaker at the North Carolina Congress. I think it was 6 years ago, was it, or 9? I don't know. I don't remember. It was a U.S. Congress, and he was the keynote speaker. He was absolutely wonderful. I was like
Fantastic.
not happy to hear that a man was going to be our keynote speaker at the Congress, but when he opened his mouth and started speaking, it was like I was just bowled over. He knew more about WILF than any of us in that room, you know, and there was a couple hundred people at the
He had
Congress.
done so much research. It was incredible.
Wasn't he? It was unbelievable. He was fabulous. And the Triangle branch there, really, they knew him. I don't know if you know, Michelle Cotton Laws I think she was the president of the NAACP as well as he was, but she was also in WILF. And I don't know if she's still active. I see her on Facebook, but it doesn't look like it's very much WILF stuff, but.
Well, Pat, I lived in the Triangle then, and so I was at that Congress, and we do so miss Miriam Thompson, who was a real strong voice at that conference, and she passed away a couple of months ago, and she was so committed to the Palestinian struggle, and it was just and that was where I first met Odile. And it was a great Congress in the Triangle that year.
Yes, it was. Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill.
Yeah, it was
really
fantastic. Wonderful. And he was so wonderful. I mean, I just was so impressed with him. And Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King were also members and spoke at the 75th, anniversary, apparently. I wasn't around at that time, but, I really feel like we have not, I hate to disabuse you, Teresa, but I don't think that WILF intentionally keeps out people of color. So, and it has never, and it's always tried to extend the hand. Haven't read that, but.
Yeah, but this tells the story of the first 60 years of WILF and how WILF still to this very day has an issue about women who are not college educated, who are women of color. And the story is told in this book about how Fannie Lou Hamer was treated, which is why we named the branch in Columbus for our sister Fannie Lou Hamer.
She was, and she was a WILFer too.
Yes.
And so wasn't, what was the other one that Rosa Parks was a member of WILF.
Oh, Shirley Chisholm, Eartha Kitt.
I
The
know.
list is long.
So I don't understand, but then I wasn't, there then, so I don't know about the early days, but I can't imagine that we would be intentionally ostracizing people of color.
Well, Pat, where are you in what city?
I'm in Cape Cod right now, but I was in the Boston branch for many years. And I was on the board for several years.
Well, I know Boston.
Yeah.
And I know enough about the Boston branch to know what's going on there. So the one thing that the anti-racism working group of WILF International which I am joining, is doing is trying to dismantle the white supremacist culture that has existed in some of the European branches as well as in the US section.
Mhm.
These are facts which are not in dispute, Pat. So I know Wilf.
Well, I don't know what those facts are, but you could really illuminate me, maybe, because I have worked most of my life.
You're in Cape Cod. How many women of color are in the Cape Cod?
Not very many,
range?
not very many. There's
Because
not
you
really-
have to reach out to them.
Yeah, well, you know, we do try to do that, but it's not necessarily successful. That's true. Absolutely true. Absolutely. I mean,
Well,
I
I'm
never wanted
sure-
to even come to the Cape because it was so white, but
well,
I,
you know, it's not anything to be defensive about.
no,
It's something for us to work together on.
well, we
change.
are, yeah, we do. We work. We are, you know, we're
Yeah, we don't want to be defensive about the history.
Let's
Well,
speak to that.
but then we can't be offensive either, okay?
I
Can
don't
I
know
speak
what
to
you
that,
mean by that.
please?
Hmm?
Please.
Miss
Dr.
Julianne,
Julie, yeah.
Dr. Julianne.
So I went to UMass Amherst, and my mother also went to UMass Amherst, even though we're from DC. And
Congratulations.
had quite an experience. I didn't notice it so much when we left DC to go to Amherst in 1971. And then when I went back in 1977, there were several beatings, couple of murders, and interactions with young people who were survivors and perpetrators, frankly, of the desegregation riots. And there's no mystery about the demographics
Yeah, right.
of different people within those communities. And so one of the things that I perceive about Wilkes, I'm gonna get it straight, is that because we're standing at a crossroads in history, that the old analysis of who's better than, less than, or who's entitled to privilege, all that stuff has to go out of the window.
Yep.
We're in a period of deep transformation,
Mhm.
and the capitalist system has turned into a crypto capitalist system that monetizes people and has for a long time. So I'm angry and indignant and frustrated and disappointed that the country has not lived up to its promise. And at the same time, I understand that the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, and the women's movement are the forces that helped to begin to civilize the country and force it to live up to its potential. So right now, we're going backward. We have murders, police-sponsored murders. We've got women losing rights. It was unthinkable after 1973, because I was, aware of what was going on in the country. Unthinkable that they would overturn Roe v. Wade. But here we are. And the way the global economy is structured is going to continue to have a regressive effect on the civil liberties of everybody on this call, everybody around the world. So I saw the problem of white supremacy firsthand. I really did. And we look at the people who, for lack of understanding, have tried their best to destroy or discriminate against, but it's not going to work anymore because we're all under the same pressure. So I want to believe that there has never been and that there never will again be any effort to exclude Black women from wealth. But ultimately, there has to be a higher level of alignment. And as a minister, I'm going to say we need more unconditional love. We need to be able to be in a space where we can talk about the stuff that happened in the past and understand there's also a future of healing and reconciliation that's in our future. I'm gonna stop talking. I can stop talk forever, so I'm gonna mute my.
That's
I could
wonderful.
too. We just had a book group about Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks, who is my hero. I have been reading Bell Hooks for years. I absolutely adored her. I thought she was like it. And when that book that she wrote was unbelievable insofar as she talked about the women's movement excluding Black women. What a shock that was. It was such a shock. But she had fact after fact after fact, and it was just like such a revelation. And I had no idea. But I really wasn't in the forefront of the women's movement, but I did appreciate, that it, like you said, it did, change and shift things. And we're in an anti-racism book group that we started out with Kendi, and we've continued, having the books. And so we are learning and always learning, but I have been learning about this my whole life, practically. Because I always resented not having people of color in my life, So I'm really, and I hate it. I hate, as you said, I believe what you said.
Thank
And
you.
I just believe it. But I don't, I've never really been intimately involved with that intention, because when I was on the board, we had Robin's friends from Vermont, Paige and Sha'an, were on the board with me. There was always, an intentional reaching out to people of color to come and join us on the board. So my experience with Wilf is not so much that, but I do believe all these things have happened. I do. And I agree with the time of transformation. And I'm really happy that this is happening. I support wholly Black Lives Matter and all of that stuff, but it's,
Thank you.
it's
Thank you,
not an
Pat.
easy, it's not
Teresa
easy.
has her hand up. Teresa?
Oh, sorry, my phone is ringing here on the other line. But hopefully it won't distract us. But Pat, it's so good to hear you say that because what George and I have been doing over the past year is building new branches of Wilf. And
you reached the number for Teresa and the
Sorry.
Southern Anti-Racism Network. Please leave a message.
So we've been recruiting women over a large geographic area.
Yes.
And many of those women are women of color. So when you look in this meeting, you see 4 people of
I love
color.
it.
So,
I love it.
so this is how you change. This is what the transformation looks like. You've got to ask people to join. You cannot have all white branches, something I've been talking to Robin about for quite some time, something I've been talking to Joan about for quite some time. And now that we have the DC, Maryland, Virginia branch, it's going to be a branch that is inclusive. And so we have Vicki Elson in that branch, and we'll have other people of European descent. But overwhelmingly, the DC, Maryland, Virginia branch is going to be a branch of Black members. Here in the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, we have 3 members of European descent, and everyone else is Black. Our youngest member is 28 years old. Our second youngest member is 30 years old. Many of us will be dead in a few years. It's inevitable. So I have learned to recruit younger women, and unfortunately, WILF has not done that as an organization. So you have branches going out of business. The Seattle branch is dead. The Portland branch is dead. The Boston branch is quite elderly. The Cleveland branch has 1 person. So we have got to do better about building branches, recruiting younger women and women of color. See, when the women of color, I recruit to the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, and I give them that Join WILF Today brochure, they can't believe that there's an organization that's over 100 years old and they never heard of it.
I know.
The NAACP was founded in 1909 and everybody knows about it. So it's the kind of thing where WILF has a new organizational culture that's being created by the women of color who have joined in the past year. It's a new day.
It's a new day.
Yes, we
So,
can always
Donna,
hope, yeah.
Donna, you should probably figure out when our next umbrella meeting is. And we can look at our calendars and figure out, because this
Mhm.
is the end of July, so maybe we can look at the end of August.
Right. And
Are we doing this monthly?
Oh, absolutely. I would like to think as we're getting better organized.
yes, let's see, August. Well, August 29th is a Monday.
Yeah, and so is August 22nd.
Yeah. So,
I could do either one if we keep it at 2 p.m.
I have the August 8th at 2 o'clock AHR Zoom. What's that?
Oh, that's the meeting for the ending mass
Ending.
incarceration and the
Oh,
death
okay.
penalty.
right,
That's a
right.
subcommittee. That's a subcommittee meeting. But this is the umbrella meeting where all of the subcommittees are supposed to come
All right.
together.
Okay.
Why don't we, how about August 22nd, the Monday?
Works for me.
That's good.
At 2 p.m. And hopefully we can have representatives from all the subcommittees. We'll have more, we'll get this together and get it out and give people more time. This was a little bit of a hastily scheduled meeting, so maybe we can forgive people who had other commitments today, but I hope that we can get on a regular schedule doing this. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and I think we're committed. George just reminded us that we have like
No
2
time,
minutes.
we're done.
No, what, no time. We're done. So,
Well,
thank you very
before,
much.
Sorry
George.
for taking up so much time.
No, I'm not.
George,
That's not on
no,
me.
it was a good discussion, but George, before you cut us off, could you be sure to save the chat? And also, can we make sure that everyone here is on board with August 22nd at 2 p.m.? Thumbs up, right?
Yes, everybody.
All right.
We need to hear from Joan and Philip. Because Joan is muted and her camera is off.
Yes, I just checked the calendar.
Oh, wonderful.
Excellent.
That is
So-
a fine date for me. No problem.
Oh,
And Philip
wonderful.
has no problem.
Well, I know
Excellent.
we'll see each other before then.
Have a
Take care,
good time at
people.
that concert, Philip.
Yeah, it's only
Yeah.
it's only $100 a day, but Tom Petty.
Oh
Woo!
my
Okay.
goodness. All
All
right,
right.
well,
Day?
Bye.
Yeah,
bye-bye. Thank you so much. And a special thank you to George.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
We
much.
love George. We
George.
love.
Thank you. We love George.
See you later, Sam, at the meeting. Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.